Hey, big kids, it is week 5, day number 1 of writing. So for writing today, we are going to be basing our writing this week on our reading. So we're going to combine those two things together. So if you look in the story that we have this week about mountains surviving on Mount Everest, dun, 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 in this story, it gives you a lot of facts and a lot of information about Mount Everest. So what I want you to do is take a moment and just reread the story. And as you read this story about Temba, what I want you to do is, there's really kind of two things going on in the story. One is it tells you about Temba's climb to the summit of Mount Everest. But in doing so, it gives you a lot of information about Mount Everest also. So I want to focus just on, this week's writing is going to focus just on this Mount Everest piece. Now, I know last week, if you remember, when we did the story regarding about Hawaii, you guys were able to do a little research project and some writing, and many of you did this amazing job with your Google Slides. So this week, I want to give you that opportunity again. And instead of about Hawaii, though, we're going to read about Mount Everest. So what we'll do is, when we collect our information, as you read it the second time, when you collect your information, there is a thinking map that we use for brainstorming. And some of you are probably shouting out at the screen right now, it's a circle map. So as you read, what I want you to do is to go through and write all of the interesting facts that you find about Mount Everest. Now you're going to find stuff in here about Temba because of course this story is about him climbing it. But as you're reading through, you're going to see one of the sections that says, what are mountains? And so it explains what a mountain is, right? And as you're going through, it'll say Mount Everest, the mountain Temba was climbing, is part of the Himalaya Mountains. So right here, I could say part of I'm going to move down here so I don't move my camera around when I'm talking. Himalaya Mountains. And because that's the name, you'll notice this is capital and so is mountains. This should be capital too. I actually made it lowercase, so let's fix that. And it is the highest, Mount Everest is the highest mountain in the world above sea level, so I can write that too. And I don't have to write the whole thing, I can just say highest mountain. And it says, let's see, as I keep reading through here, I'm going to go ahead and go. It says mountains conditions, and it talks about how the air is less and less oxygen as the altitude increases. So remember, altitude, it's not attitude, it's altitude. That's how tall something is. So the altitude increases the oxygen. What's the opposite of increases? So as you get higher, the oxygen gets smaller, but instead of saying smaller, if I say increase, what would be the opposite of that? I would say decreases, yeah. That's called an inverse relationship. It means that as one gets bigger, the other gets smaller. They have the opposite effect on each other. And it talks about frostbite. Remember how in the story it talks about that? So I'm just going to write frostbite here. And then as you read through, I want you to go ahead and you will today, I just want you to read this story. As you read, as you come across interesting facts about Mount Everest or anything that you need to know about Mount Everest, I want you to go ahead and put that in here. That could include, the equipment, the special equipment that you need to climb Mount Everest. It may include what Mount Everest is. It may include why people climb Mount Everest. Like, why would you want to go to the tallest peak in the world? Like, you could also, there's a list of famous explorers in here that have climbed Mount Everest. So if you want to include their names in there too, just all the information that you can, all of the facts that you can find about Mount Everest. And then when you are done with this, what I want you to do is you'll put a gigantic circle around all of this. And all of this should be filled out pretty well, because you should have lots and lots and lots of facts that you can find in here. And then for today, that will be the end of your journey. So again, you're going to read through the story. As you read through, I want you to continue to add facts about Mount Everest. Got it? It's pretty easy. I mean, you guys should be able to rock this out with no problem. Cool. All right. I will catch you all on the flip side.